In October 1347, 12 Genoese trading ships started from Crimean port city of Caffa, they sailing through Black Sea to the Sicilian port of Messina to transporting the goods. In those ships, rats are common travel partners with sailors, but this time, some fleas came with the rats. These are the reason for the spread of bacterium called Yersinia pestis and cause of millions of deaths, known as the Black Death, history's deadliest plague. The virus started infecting the sailors. They started feeling fever, chills, vomiting, but they don't know what is happening. Days passed, the symptoms getting worse. One day, 12 Genoese trading ships docked at the Sicilian port of Messina. What the townspeople saw was terrifying. Most of the sailors in the ships were dead, and those still alive were gravely ill. They had fevers, were covered in black boils that oozed blood and pus, and their breath was foul. The Black Death had arrived. From Sicily, the plague moved quickly. It spread through Italy, then France, Spain, and into England and beyond. The conditions of the time, overcrowded cities, poor sanitation, and a lack of medical knowledge made Europe the perfect breeding ground for this deadly disease. The Black Death manifested in three forms: bubonic, septicemic, and pneumonic. The bubonic form was the most common and included symptoms such as fever, chills, vomiting, and the appearance of painful swollen lymph nodes called buboes. The septicemic form, which infected the bloodstream, and the pneumonic form, which affected the lungs, were even more lethal and could kill within hours. People were terrified and had no idea how to stop the plague. Some thought it was a punishment from God. Others blamed it on bad air or even the alignment of the planets. Doctors of the time were powerless against the disease. Entire towns were wiped out. Families were torn apart. With so many dead, the bodies often lay unburied, causing the air to stink of death. The social order broke down as fear and desperation took over. The drastic population decline caused labor shortages and economic disruption. With fewer workers available, wages rose, and the rigid feudal system began to break down. This shift in the workforce dynamics also led to social upheavals and revolts, such as the Peasants' Revolt in England in 1381. Medical knowledge in the 14th century was limited, and the responses to the Black Death were often ineffective or misguided. Medieval medicine was heavily influenced by ancient Greek and Roman theories. Some common practices are bloodletting, herbal remedies, pestilence medicines, and superstitious practices. Doctors believed that removing blood from the body could help balance the humors. This practice was often performed with leeches or through venesection, a method of cutting a vein. Various herbs and concoctions were prescribed to patients, although their efficacy was minimal. Pestilence medicines were special concoctions believed to protect against the plague, often including ingredients like theriac, a compound of numerous substances thought to be a cure-all. Some treatments were based on superstition, such as carrying amulets, burning aromatic substances, and using magical charms. Plague doctors often kept detailed notes on the symptoms and progression of the disease, which contributed to the early understanding of the plague. Some people, like the village of Eyam in England, chose to quarantine themselves to prevent the spread of the plague to neighboring areas. Their sacrifice saved countless lives. The city of Venice pioneered, used isolating incoming ships and their crews in designated lazarettos for 40 days to prevent the spread of the disease. And people made some efforts to improve sanitation, such as cleaning streets, disposing of dead bodies promptly, and controlling the rat population. Despite their limitations, the efforts of medical practitioners during the Black Death laid important groundwork for the future of medicine and public health. Their records, observations, and initial public health measures contributed to the evolving understanding of disease and the development of more effective medical practices in the future. The Black Death began to wane by the early 1350s, but it never truly disappeared. Recurrences of the plague would continue to strike Europe for centuries, though never with the same devastating impact as the initial outbreak. By the time it had run its course, it had killed an estimated 25 to 30 million people, about 1/3 of Europe's population. Between 1347 and 1351, an estimated 25 to 50% of the population perished, with some regions losing up to 80% of their inhabitants. The sharp decline in population resulted in severe labor shortages. With fewer workers available, those who survived found themselves in higher demand. This led to significant wage increases for laborers and artisans. The Black Death also led to changes in land use and agricultural practices. The increased bargaining power of peasants and the shift towards a more market-oriented economy weakened the traditional feudal relationships between lords and serfs. The old feudal system began to crumble. The economic transformations following the Black Death also spurred urbanization. As labor became more valuable, many peasants left rural areas to seek better opportunities in towns and cities. This migration contributed to the growth of urban centers and the expansion of trade and commerce. The long-term economic effects of the Black Death were significant. The increased wages and improved living standards for the working class led to greater consumption and demand for goods. This, in turn, stimulated trade and commerce. The economic changes also laid the groundwork for the development of early banking and financial systems. The need for credit and the growth of trade led to the establishment of banks and other financial institutions, which would play a crucial role in the economic development of Europe in the following centuries. The social and economic transformations brought about by the Black Death were profound and far-reaching. The pandemic not only changed the demographics of Europe, but also led to significant shifts in labor dynamics, agricultural practices, and economic structures. These changes played a crucial role in the transition from the medieval to the modern era, highlighting the resilience and adaptability of human societies in the face of catastrophic events. The Black Death was a tragedy of unimaginable scale, but it also shaped the world we live in today in profound ways. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of history's darkest times. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Timeline Nexus for more deep dives into the past. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.